Club show. I'm your host, Jeremy, back in the studios here at allpointstv.com. Got John in the studio making it happen.
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
Yeah, it's like I got my headphones all messed up, so I'll be right back. So I'll talk to you in a bit.
All right. Well, it's March 13th, another glorious day. We're just a short week away from the first beginnings of spring. And, it's like 40 degrees today, kind of rainy. So it feels a little nasty out, but hey, at least it's not 10 degrees, right? But hey, it's another wonderful day. I'm going to talk to you about medical marijuana. I'm going to let you guys up to speed with what's happening here in the state of Michigan. Also let you know what's been going down at the Genesee County Compassion Club. And let's get it on, all right? So last week, we did not have a podcast. It's because we were having the most awesome 10-year birthday celebration at the club. Say thanks to everybody who made it out. Special thanks to our staff who made it happen. It was a great day. I mean, I got to see people get whacked as they were trying to get candy out of a piñata. Nice job filming that, Toby. And I got to see a lot of great things. I got to see Joe win a Nintendo Wii that was freaking sweet, and a whole bunch of other great prizes. So those of you who came down and celebrated with us, thank you very much for being there. It's a big deal, obviously, for us, 10 years old, and we're glad to share it with you. It was a blast. It was awesome. Our next big party coming up that you definitely do not want to miss is our 420 party. Obviously, it's going to be on April 20th, and I believe that is I keep forgetting every time I say this. I think it's a Friday. Let me check the calendar. No, Saturday. My bad. Saturday.
Yeah, I was going to say, I just checked my calendar. No, it's Saturday.
I knew it was the weekend, but I guess I was trying to fast forward it. So.
Just in Michigan, though, you're going to have to see if you're going to wear a coat or just have nice weather, though, because you had some pretty cold days.
You never know.
Yeah.
You never know. But regardless, the party will be mostly inside, so you guys should be comfortable no matter what. We're having kind of a circus theme this year, so it should be something new, something different, but also something fun. Tickets are $20 in advance, so make sure you get your tickets and be there. Be square, man. Saturday, April 20th, it's going to be a freaking awesome bash. It is our 11th one. I've got the one on from last year. I think this is last year's 420. That was our 10-year 420 party. So going to be doing it big, doing it loud. Come on down, plan it out. I mean, it's going to be an awesome day. It's like a national holiday now, 420.
Right? I really think it is.
It is.
I mean,
and I know a lot of folks say, oh, 420, big deal. I smoke weed every day. Well, I mean...
Well, you still have Christmas, right?
Yeah, no. Christmas, right? You still... I mean, not that you open up gifts for everybody every day, but, I mean, sure, you get yourself a gift throughout the year. It's not like you can't because it's not Christmas.
Right. It's a good celebration, though, man. You got good food going on, too. You going to do that this year, too? Food?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So... definitely be well worth your money. You'll have lots of fun, I promise you. And we're looking forward to seeing you guys there. Again, that's April 20th.
You have to be a member.
Yes.
Okay, you have to be a member.
Yep. Got to be medical card, of course. Other events we got coming up here. Just next week, March 19th, we have the Soup Kitchen. So please don't forget about that. We definitely could use your help. I know last time we had like 120 people show up to eat. And thankfully we were able to serve them and feed them. But we definitely can't do that without some helping hands. So March 19th, please come down if you can. We'll be at the North End Soup Charities Kitchen right here on Stewart Street. And we look forward to seeing you guys there, hopefully. All right? Check with Matt Bernash if you have questions or sign up at the bar. All right? What else we got here going on? All right. Man, we had some good news last week. And again, I know I wasn't here because I was at the birthday party. But definitely had some good stuff going on in Michigan last week. And primarily what I'm referring to is the dissolution of the Medical Marijuana Licensing Board. This, of course, was the board that was put in place by Rick Snyder, our former governor, to not only make up rules, but decide who gets to participate and who doesn't in the new Medical Marijuana Licensing Facilities Act. So, and as I'm sure you've heard if you've been listening to the podcast or watching the news at all, the board's performance was dismal at best. They had difficulties in getting things done quickly enough to simply supply the market, which they've utterly failed at. They had difficulties in figuring out what their processes were going to be. So they took a lot longer than really anybody expected. And then once they got rolling in the process, they continued to drag their feet, meeting like maybe once a month. And when you have an application list of 600-700 people waiting in line for something, meeting once a month and going over, 15 to 30 applications is really just not even close to coming to a reality of being able to complete your task. So it's a good thing, I think, absolutely, that Governor Whitmer dissolved this board, and the duties and responsibilities of the board will now be given over to LARA. So originally it was Lara who was in charge of the medical marijuana program, still is to this day, and now they will be adding to their responsibilities in making actual approvals for facilities to participate in the new Facilities Licensing Act. So that's, I think, a good thing. We'll also have to see how the Department of Lara is going to respond to the medical marijuana, or excuse me, not medical marijuana, but to the recreational marijuana law and the rules that need to be set up for that program as well. So it is I think it's a good step forward that Whitmer dissolved this board. I mean, they certainly didn't really have patients' needs in mind. In fact, if you watch many of the past board meetings, they're available online as public information. You really would question the necessity of this board at all. I mean, Lara is doing a pretty in-depth review, background checks, so on and so forth, on all of their applicants. And it seemed to me that, once the board got past their personal bias, they were really forced to sort of go along with whatever Lara had checked or didn't check. So I think really, honestly, the board is absolutely unnecessary from its inception, and I'm glad to see it go. So we'll have yet to see what happens. The board will still be functioning into, I believe, into April. So, in fact, I've got an article here for you. This is from, so you can find this, Marijuana Business Daily. And it says here that regulators are poised to enforce a March 31st deadline for about 50 unlicensed dispensaries to close. So that's the first part. But they are recommending that the licensed facilities can continue to buy from caregivers after that date. The paper goes on to say that the critical extension is to ensure medical marijuana supplies are on the market while the state transitions to a smaller, more restrictive market, i.e. the Facilities Act and the producers for the facility. So at any rate, they're continuing on with allowing caregivers to distribute or to dispense to dispensaries, if you will, past March 31st. I have heard that they are going to be mandatorily testing that material, and the process there may be different after March 31st. So for those of you that are working in that situation, be aware you may be coming up on some changes after this deadline. We have seen a number of recalls be issued. The recalls have been for both cannabis issued from actual licensed facilities and, of course, licensed caregivers. So we're seeing recalls happen on both sides of the production line. What we need to see is a difference in the process, if you will, so that these products are being tested before they're put to market and not after. Hopefully that will help, and I think that's what they're alluding to, the difference being in caregivers working with dispensaries in the future. At this time, there's no deadline or cutoff for the caregivers that are working with these dispensaries. The state has not yet issued any type of timeline for that. However, they are saying that by March 31st, if your facility has not yet been licensed, then your facility will need to close until it is licensed. So we'll have to see how this continues to go. The paper also goes on to say that in the beginning of the Medical Facilities Act, so basically the first 4 months of its operation, the program netted $42 million in sales. And of course, these are the sales that have gone through these facilities. It's not the total amount of sales in the state. I think we still have a very robust and active caregiver market in the state. So what percentage of the total this 42 million represents, I couldn't tell you. I don't know. Is it 10%? Is it 50%? Is it 70%? I'm really not too sure. But at any rate, it's definitely not all of it. So there's certainly a large market. If you do the simple math here, it's over $10 million a month in cannabis sales just at these licensed dispensaries. So who knows? Maybe the actual sales per month in Michigan are closer to 20 million. Maybe they're 100 million. I don't know. But certainly 42 million is nothing to scoff at over a 4-month period. And it's only set to grow, of course. So, it's kind of interesting to see how this continues to work. Obviously, the governor's stepping in, making some very needed changes. And, hopefully they'll be for a positive. It says here the board, the one that's been dissolved, is going to continue operating. They have a vote coming up here on March 21st that they're taking to vote on how they're going to continue the supply, whether caregivers can maintain, and so on and so forth. So it still seems that the board is still somewhat involved for at least another 30 days. After that, it's going to go back to Lara. Here's some numbers so far. This is from the paper. So far, the licensing board has approved 121 permits under the new system, including 54 dispensaries. Roughly 50 unlicensed dispensaries are still operating. The licensing board has one more meeting scheduled before the 31st deadline to consider additional licenses. State regulators say that cease and desist letters will be served to unlicensed facilities, and Whitmer approved or called for the board to be abolished on April 30th. So there's the nuts and bolts of what's going on here in Michigan when in regards to the Michigan Medical Marijuana Licensed Facilities Act. Like I said, I think it's a positive move. I think we still need to focus on caregivers and creating a spot for them in the system. They're certainly a vital part of the distribution system here in Michigan for medical marijuana. And we have to put pressure on the state, if you will. At least now we don't have some board that we can't touch. So that's a good thing. Another thing in Michigan I want to make mention of, and this is a positive thing for sure. Michigan regulators expanded the state's list of qualifying illnesses for medical marijuana by adding cerebral palsy to the list. And this was just recently. So we're continuing to add conditions for qualifying conditions to our medical marijuana list. It was just updated again like 6 months ago. We added quite a few more conditions. I think we covered that here in the podcast. And this is one more that's been added on. So cerebral palsy, now an official qualifying condition for medical marijuana, not just the symptoms that are related to it. So good stuff. All right, other stuff we got going on here in Michigan I want to share with you. I talked a little bit about this on the last podcast, and I want to talk a little bit more about it. This is the lobbying groups for medical marijuana that have sprung up just recently in Michigan, and it's important that we pay attention to these lobbying groups, folks. And the reason is, here it is, they don't always represent us. And in fact, a lot of times lobbyist groups don't represent us at all anyways. As far as individuals go, as far as patients go, as far as caregivers go in medical marijuana. And the first group is the Michigan Cannabis Industry Association. This group has a little bit of a track history. I know Robin Schneider is involved in this. She was involved in medical marijuana and has been for quite a long time, and has been pretty good person in far as regarding the protection of patients' rights, the viability of medicine for patients, so on and so forth. I don't think that Robin and I always agree 100%, but for the most part, I think she's a very good person. She is a part of this organization, and so I have hope that the MCIA can be a good organization for patients and caregivers in Michigan. Again, that's the Michigan Cannabis Industries Association. Also has a few other people involved on the board. I think one of the gentlemen from Ohm of Ann Arbor, Ohm Medicine, is also on the board, and a couple other people that have been involved in medical marijuana for quite some time here in Michigan. So possibly a good group there. We'll definitely want to keep our eyes and ears open on their activities and see if there's anything that we can support that's coming out of their efforts. And also, of course, police them. Make sure that anything they do put out there is, of course, in our favor and protecting our rights. Another group that I already mentioned in a previous podcast, this is the second lobbyist group to spring up, is the Great Lakes Cannabis Chamber of Commerce. Now, I've already spoke negatively about this group, and I'll just reiterate what I've already basically said, and that's this group was one of the first things that they put out actually in public was them basically poo-pooing on caregivers, saying that caregivers shouldn't be allowed to continue giving untested medicine to centers and so on and so forth because of all the recalls. This is just pandering, fluffing, if you will. I mean, these guys are representing, obviously, their own business interest, not the interest of patients and caregivers. So, at any rate, that's GLCC, Great Lakes Cannabis Chamber of Commerce. You can check them out, make your own opinions for yourself. But definitely two groups that we want to keep an eye on here in the future. If they're standing out there and they're saying, hey, we want to lobby for cannabis change, well, that might affect you. And we want to make sure that these aren't the only voices up there. Or if they are, let them understand whether or not they have our support, right? So, important stuff, good stuff. Okay, other news I want to share with you today. This is some good stuff here. This is from the UN, and we've talked about the necessity of the UN to change their policies. One of the big groups in the UN is the United Nations Office on Drug Control, the UNODCP. These guys set guidelines up for, nations, all right? And then countries take their cues from them. Oftentimes we see countries being hesitant to do something or to not do something if they've already entered into an agreement at the United Nations level. And then we've seen the opposite of that. We've seen countries like Canada, countries like our own, the U.S., countries like Paraguay, that have gone on and said, you know what, we understand that we're a part of the UN. We understand that we're part of the policies we set forth in regards to marijuana on the UN's national level, but we're going to go ahead and do our own thing anyways. And it hasn't affected their membership. It's not like they're not in good standing in the UN because now they have recreational cannabis available in their country. So it just goes back to reinforce the fact that the UN needs to change their policy. It's outdated and it's prohibitive to things like research, to people getting help, to getting the medicine that they need, to having civil reform change. So these are all definite things that we can see moving forward in the future, and the UN needs to jump on board. Looks like they're going to. So the UN's Chief Executives Board, which represents 31 different agencies, including the UNODCP, adopted a position stipulating that member states should pursue science-based, health-oriented drug policies, namely decriminalization. See here, the significance of the decriminalization endorsement, they say, is hard to overstate. Not only does it represent a substantial evolution on the part of the certain UN agencies like the UNODCP, which has historically supported the enforcement of punitive drug laws, but it also comes at the head of a major international meeting that will shape future UN drug policy. So, I won't get into the article any further. You can check it out for yourself. It's on marijuanamoment.net. This is a good thing. I mean, it's hard to affect change on such a large scale level, but here it is 10 years later after we've been doing this here in Michigan, 20 years, 22 plus years here in the United States since we've had medical marijuana introduced in California in 1996. So actually 23 years. In a way, yeah, we're leading the way. In other way, other countries are leading the way. But all of these micro movements lead to a major movement, and we're almost there. So these little steps that the UN has been taking over the past 12 months will hopefully move us to a more congruent take on their approach to drug laws. And hopefully they take a broader approach than just looking at marijuana. I mean, things like civil reform, treating drug addiction as a health issue and not a criminal one. These are things that we all need to look at and move forward on. I know there's a lot of different debates on, people talking about needle exchange programs and stuff like this in the absence of folks who have, real medical needs like diabetes and so on and so forth. So there's certainly room for debate out there. I think the important key here is that we are not taking these drug users or people who are dependent on these substances and simply throwing their lives away, putting them in jail, making it tougher for them to be a productive citizen. I think there's better ways for us to approach these problems, to get these people off from these substances, get them into a productive state of mind. If we can't, I think there's other ways that we can treat them other than incarceration. So hopefully this will move us forward in these types of scenarios. And, maybe in the next 12 months, we'll see something affirmative come out of the UN. So this is definitely a step forward and good news all in all. All right, I already talked about cerebral palsy. I kind of jumped ahead on that. I was excited about that condition. And the March 31st deadline, talked about that as well. All right, well, moved right along in this podcast, John. Let's see here. There's another article here. I'll talk about this real quickly. It says here, this is again from marijuanamoment.net. 2 members of the House Appropriations Subcommittee pressed the U.S. top Treasury Department official on the issue of banking on Tuesday. So this was just yesterday. At a hearing, Representative Mark Amoti, Republican, from Nevada, commented on what he described as a double standard where private sector cannabis businesses are put through hoops to secure bank accounts while government entities are able to deposit tax revenue from cannabis sales into federally regulated institutions. And there's no scrutiny whatsoever. Good point, Representative. Congressman said he generally understood why banks like Wells Fargo, which hasn't had a great couple of years, would be sensitive to federal drug laws and avoid servicing state legal cannabis businesses. He gave another hypothetical example of a bank rejecting a plumber who may have done work on a rental property for the landlord, which is leased to somebody who grows or distributes marijuana. So, again, bringing different scenarios here to the attention of our U.S. Department of Treasury. Here's another Honorable Sigal Mandakar. I don't know how to say her name properly. I apologize. Head of Terrorism and Financial Intelligence. She's speaking on this as well. It looks like we're having more and more leaders. We had the 2 recent senators from Oregon step up and introduce their bill, House Bill 420, ironically labeled, to change banking for medical marijuana states or marijuana institutions that are legally licensed in their state. And this is just one more person adding to the pot. So while nothing has been done yet, it seems that the pressure is building. And so that's a good thing. And obviously we see this continue to be an issue where banks will not handle medical marijuana business, but yet we have government entities like townships and the state collecting revenue from this, depositing in their bank accounts without any issues. It's definitely a double standard. If the banks can't take weed money, they shouldn't be able to take it from anybody. So, and of course they should be able to take it from anybody who's licensed. So it's really a silly thing that we have going on in our country. It sort of highlights the left hand not knowing what the right hand's doing kind of a scenario that happens in our government. And, it's an unfortunate thing, but something that we can continue to work on. So, all right. That's basically the news I have for you guys this week. I know it's kind of short and sweet, but hey, why not, right? Please remember to mark your calendars for the 420 party. Definitely want to see you guys down there. Get down to the club, try out. We got a new menu coming out soon. I know you guys are going to like it. And lots of fun stuff. So get to the club, check it out. It's definitely a lot warmer in there than it is outside. All right, folks? Stay tuned. We'll be back here next week for more. You guys have a great week and smoke some weed.